If you love movies, you're in the right place, and that place is here at the Chronicle, the official film podcast of the People's Movies. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 53. My name is Paul. I am your host, as well as the editor of the People's Movies. I'm looking back to the old way. We have my co-host, and it's welcome back to Clotilde. How are you, Clotilde?
I'm good, thank you. Good to be back.
It's great to be back, and I believe this is your favourite episode. So this episode, folks, is going to be a big one. Well, we hope it will be a big, long one. It's actually a double episode, but we'll see how we go. It might end up being one episode, and that is the best, our favourite films of 2025. And welcome to episode 53 of the Chronicle, with our favourite films of 2025. Clotilde, I don't know about you, but the movies that I've got here, they aren't in order. I don't know if you're going to go in order, as in this is my favourite, 10 favourite, whatever.
Well, it's hard because my first like five or six of the top 10 are all 5 stars. So I guess there's no specific order.
So they're all number one then.
Yeah,
Right.
they all number one, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'll go first. This is one of the ones that's and my it surprised me, but because of my situation, I put him in the best list, and that is I don't know if you'll have this Del Toro's Frankenstein, which is currently on
hmm
Netflix. Obviously, it's great to obviously see Del Toro finally getting to do one of his passion projects. As you will know, Clotilde, that he's getting many passion projects he's wanted to do, especially the Lovecraft ones. Frankenstein. I've done a little short, if I remember rightly, done a little short festival run, and then it had a cinema release as well. And now it's been on Netflix, I think, since November-ish. And Netflix, they don't usually release the figures of how many have been watching their films and their shows. But they're starting to do it now. They're saying 29 million plus viewers at the time it released on Netflix were watching this. Oscar Isaacs, he plays Victor Frankenstein. Jacob Elordi, he's playing the monster. This also stars Maya Goth, Christoph Waltz, Felix Krimener, Lars Mikkelsen, David Bradley, Charles Dance, Christian Convery, and Ralph Ineson. This is just basically a retelling of Mary Shelley's classic Gothic horror. Clotilde, I don't know about you, but some people might consider this one of the greatest romantic dramas ever made. I don't know about you in literature. What do you think?
I think, yes, part of it I think is true. But equally, I think we should also recognize it as one of the first Gothic stories. I mean, I guess the two go together when it comes to Frankenstein. I think you can see it as a sort of romantic Gothic story, maybe.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one of. I know you're not the biggest fan of horrors. Could this be considered one of those horrors that a non-horror fan would enjoy?
Absolutely. I don't really think it's a horror. I mean, there's
Yeah,
elements of horror for sure, but I think that's why the Gothic really exists. I mean, I know it doesn't exist as genre in filmmaking, but in literature at least it does differ quite a lot from books even that we would consider as horror. I think in terms of film, Del Toro does a really good job in that sense at sort of making it really a Gothic story. I didn't find it quite horror-y. There are elements of like maybe body horror or some elements of thriller as well, but I don't think overall it's a horror film. I don't know what it's categorized as, but if it's categorized as a horror movie, I disagree.
yeah. Believe it or not, Netflix. I've got it as sci-fi horror drama
Sci-fi?
romance. Yes, exactly. That's what I said. Sci-fi.
No.
Yeah, to me, sci-fi is more like War of the Worlds, that type of thing, or some sort of film that
Yeah,
goes into
exactly.
space. That
Mickey
sci
17 was a sci-fi.
exactly.
Can't
Yeah,
believe this.
exactly. I know. This film goes in, which I liked, goes in chapters. You get the prelude, which, if I remember rightly, the prelude opens up before the actual credits. And we get to see, I believe it's in the North Pole, and we see this frozen ship stranded, and the crew are attempting to free themselves from the frozen ice. It's got them stranded there, and then obviously they start to hear noises and roars that's happening. Also, as they get out to they get a bit fearful that what's going on here, so they go out to have a little look, and they see something just slightly in the distance, and it's like a campsite. And they go in, and that's when they find a very injured Victor Frankenstein. Crew, they just want to get away. Obviously they bring Victor Frankenstein on board. He's like, leave me here, or you'll all be dead. The creature wants me, that type of thing. Obviously the creature gets closer, so then it goes into the first part where it's sort of like Victor's story, and you go back to when he's young Victor. Obviously, his father, who's like a great top surgeon of the time, that's Charles Dance. He's like a nobleman. He basically said, I don't want to sound horrible here, but Victor was really a mummy's boy. You get to see in that first sort of chapter, he's very close to his mum. But obviously his father, he's got some respect for his father because he's like he's training him to be a surgeon like him. He's somebody of high nobleship. He does sort of despise him a bit. His father's very tough on him, because he wants him to be good. And I think at times he's more interested that if Victor gets into medicines and embarrasses him, that type of thing. His mother is pregnant to his younger brother, William, and we get to see the birth of William and what actually happens there. At this point, his father's attitude just completely changes towards Victor, and everything he wants to do is for his brother. Eventually, we get to see Victor grow up, and he goes to the Royal College of Medicine. And this is where I start to like it as well, because the Royal College of Medicine, which was probably the number one place at the time. This is sort of going back to sort of 1857. That's the sort of time we're in. Back then, the Royal College of Medicine's in Edinburgh, which is just along the road from me, an hour's drive away from me. We get to see the younger Frankenstein there. He's presenting something in front of the students, the doctors, the teachers, the trainers, whatever. You have seen this version, have you, Clotilda?
Yes.
It was half a body when he had at the part where he starts hooking up the electricity go through it. Is that correct? Is that, if I remember right, that's what he was actually shown to the students?
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right. I forgot about that part.
I think it's if you like to say it's like him opening the door to his madness, how eccentric he was, and how he wants to be
Hmm.
he wants to be the god that Victor
Yeah,
Frankenstein wants to be. Where he starts to show an experiment, it shows how he can bring someone he can create and bring someone back to life. And that at
yeah,
this lecture, there's Henry, which is Christoph Waltz. And he approaches him to say that Maya Goth plays I believe his niece, Elizabeth, and she's coming to town, but he's actually marrying his brother William Frankenstein, who he hasn't seen for a very, very, very long time. He wants to give Victor the money to get his project. Victor's a little bit cautious of doing it because he knows he's wanting something out of this, which you do eventually do start to learn. This is when Victor starts going round and he's travelling around, and at the same time he's starting a bit of a relationship with Elizabeth, and he's getting very close to Elizabeth. His brother's just his brother, he will always like him as well. And then he starts to get the body parts and things. He gets a castle. It's like a castle, which I think. See when you see the style of the castle, that is Del Toro's tribute to the original Universal creatures, the Universal version of Frankenstein, which is not. I don't know if you agree with that, Clotilda.
yeah. I think so, and I think the film does a lot of. I know Frankenstein is obviously a novel. There's a lot of it that we imagine more than see, but I think it does a lot of tributes visually as well, in how sort of majestic some of the sets look.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do. I mean, if you've seen the original Frankenstein, folks, you'll know right away how majestic this castle. I believe it was in France, maybe France.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah, where the castle is. He goes a lot of what he does a lot of stuff in Switzerland as well, in Geneva. So eventually that leads to at least to the creation of the monster, Jacob Elordi. I'm not going to go much more into the sort of details of what happens. The next stage of the film is all about the monster. The middle stage is where we get to see the creation of the monster. We get to see Victor getting even more crazier. He's absolutely, he wants to be the god. There's little symbols. I think he sees something red in his room and he thinks it's a sign for God, but it's actually it's something devilish, if I believe, as well. You see that, and he just basically goes downhill here. What I liked about this version, Del Toro is more sympathetic towards the creature, and because in the the original black and white version, yeah, there is sympathy for the creature there from the little girl, but you see, I mean he's next to the water, but there's a lot of evil, there's a lot of nastiness, and he becomes across as a very much a creature, a monster, no, a villain. It's a sympathy there, as you said. There's a lot of it's full of rich, it's stunning visually, and it's rich and gothic atmosphere. The atmosphere, obviously, for the monster. Do you know what? It's as you said, it's not really a horror in the sense. There's a lot of beauty to it, and
Yeah.
you don't know what I think also. Are you aware of
Mary Shelley.
Mary Shelley? Yes. You believe do you think? I mean, there's themes of fatherhood here and creation and obviously rejection there. That's in there in the story. And I think Del Toro has been very faithful and respectful to Shelley. Are you aware that after
Hmm.
her husband died, Frankenstein is considered one of the first LGBT stories because
I didn't know that.
They believe that Mary Shelley was bisexual, which is very unusual.
Really? I
And
could believe that actually.
yeah, and when you see this, because there's a bit of homoeroticism in this film as well, and I think it's sort of reflecting that sort of side of things, and obviously anyone who maybe consider themselves under the LGBT rainbow, that they can understand anyone that's maybe not come out of any, with alienation, the anxieties, the crime, the sort of at the time it was seen as criminal to be gay or lesbian in that time, right up to about 50, 60 years ago as well. So I think there's a lot of, I think Del Toro's bringing a lot of that, and I don't know what you think of that.
I didn't know that. That's actually fascinating. I would love to rewatch the film or even read Frankenstein with that in mind. I think there could be a lot of sort of added value to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not out and out, showing it, out and out showing it. But I just think there's always been, if you look back when I was doing the research, you find out there's a lot of articles and studies on it that show that potentially, yeah, this was her sort of telling people I'm out type thing, because she was a completely different character person, after the death of her husband, and obviously, in this. Before I sort of sum up the rest of this one, is there anything else you'd maybe like to add to Frankenstein?
I'm actually going to join you on this one. I think Frankenstein is also one of my favorite of the year, easily. I loved it. I don't know how many people had the opportunity to see it on a big screen because Netflix did a cinema release, but it was a limited cinema release. I think it's absolutely worth seeing on the biggest screen possible. I think Guillermo del Toro said it himself, and it's such a stunning movie visually that I think it's such a big part of the storytelling as well. It always is in films, but even more so in this one. And I really loved it. I think the acting is excellent as well. I think Jacob Elordi is such a great monster. I didn't expect him to be that good, and it's quite a tough role. There's a big part of it in which he doesn't speak at all, so it's a lot of physical acting. I think he does it so well.
Yeah,
It's kind of impressive. I think he's not really known for, good or quality, high quality films, maybe, but I have to say, he did surprise me. And I think Mia Goth is also pretty good in it. Did you know she also plays the mother? Because I found out recently, I watched the film in September in Venice, and I only found out that she also plays the mother like 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
I can't believe I've never clocked for me. I think that speaks to um how differently she plays the characters. And also the costumes are just brilliant. I
yeah.
don't know how many people got a chance to see it, but there was an exhibition in London about the sort of filmmaking of Frankenstein. There's some like props and stuff, but the most impressive part is the costumes. Obviously, you see it in the film as well, but seeing them up close, the detailing of each one is just very impressive. I think we've got a Oscar nomination coming up. I hope we do because it's beautiful to look at, and it's I think some films tend to get quite lazy about costumes, so it's quite nice to see that Frankenstein goes all out in that sense. I really love that. I think they also tell a story with the colors. I think Guillermo del Toro was asked about this in an interview, and he was talking about how the color choices are very intentional, and the color palette, obviously, when they're sort of up north, it looks quite icy as it should be. The colors changed depending on the setting, but also where Victor is in his life, and then when we sort of see the monster's point of view, they also represent the monster's own feelings. And that's not just in the costumes, but it's in the cinematography. So he worked really closely with the cinematographer in this film for this. I feel like you could sit down and sort of pick an element of the film, whether that's the costumes or the cinematography or even the music. The music is brilliant too, and really over analyze every element of it. It's a film I'm really looking forward to rewatching as well. There's a lot of like Christian references visually in the costumes and in the cinematography. So there's really so much to unpack in what looks like a story that we already know. I think, like you said, he's quite faithful to Mary Shelley and also, in a way, brings some little like modern elements. You know, Frankenstein has been adapted more than once before.
Yeah,
So I think it's nice to see this film has something to say. It's not just another retelling.
exactly. Yeah. And then there's going to be another Frankenstein type retelling next year in 2026 with Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, and it looks
Oh, yes.
and that looks a completely different look on it. You know, it's more of a Bonnie and Clyde type story rather than a sort of Frankenstein's Bride. You know, I was impressed. With it. I agree with the colour palette. It's absolute gorgeous. It was great to see. Yeah, the colour palette. It reminded me a little bit of something maybe Michel Gondry might have done me. You know, his colour palette. You know, that type of thing. As in, it's great to see Edinburgh as a Gothic place. You know,
Mm.
as a centre because my God, that city gave a lot. It's given a lot to literature and films in general. It's a marvelous place to actually have as a film set, as in Glasgow, which virtually every Hollywood movie seems to be filming in. And I think I've got one or two ones I might be mentioning in this list and maybe the next list actually were filmed in Glasgow. I believe it is a metaphor for homosexuality. You know, it was. I believe it was. Some believe it was Mary Shelley sort of saying how she was also attracted to women as well. I liked how the sort of empathy for the creature. As you said, it was also good to see that Del Toro went away from the sort of the universal style of Frankenstein to something that was more patchwork and how he learned to how he gradually started to learn things, you know, and eventually get to speak. But he was still, and by the time he got to see Victor, he had some sort of sense, you know. Obviously, you get the father-son relationship dynamic in there, you know, and how it was very complex. They kept that there, and it was a very powerful bond. You know, they were treating it as a very powerful bond as well, and that empathy for the outsider with the creature, despite that. Del Toro was very good at doing that in a lot of his film. He always seems to have some sort of empathy. He even done it in Nightmare Alley, you know, with Bradley Cooper's character.
Hmm.
He done it in that as well. I mean, that's another fabulous film. That was quite gothic, even got darkly gothic for a film noir. And you know, it's just overall, you know, it's a gorgeous movie. Yep, I will say, folks, it won't be for everyone. Yeah, if you're going in the sort of tropes, you know, this is a film that probably be considered an art house drama, horror, whatever you want to call it, romance. It is about 2.5 hours long. I do wish I did see it in the big screen myself, but unfortunately, the only cinema that was showing it was shown at an odd time where I was unable to go and see it. And obviously my job, I start at the crazy hours the day, like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Are you aware that the film sort of shifted to the sort of Crimean War era? And that's what gave those Victorian visuals and then the sort of colour, as you said, the red accent sense. You aware of that? Are you aware it was that's how he done it?
No, I did. I That's interesting, actually.
So obviously the colours that he used are very relevant for via the Crimean
Yeah,
War.
I know
Yep,
that. And the reds are so like stunning and
yeah,
vibrant.
and obviously red's a colour of danger as well, and that's
Hmm.
obviously the symbolism for the Red Angel that Victor keeps
Yeah.
saying, you know, in the scene if he was a young boy, you know, and he thinks that was God. It was. This is the first time, folks, that I actually reviewed this film. Some of the films that I'm going to talk about in the podcast, we were unable to do them in the podcast all the time. People are doing their own things, their own personal lives, work, university, you name it. So unfortunately, we couldn't do them. But obviously, this is my chance to obviously do the reviews. So that's why. If I was to give this a rating, yeah, I'm between 4 and 5 stars. What about yourself?
That was 5 stars
Yeah, yeah.
easily.
Yes, so you have it, folks. That is Del Toro's Frankenstein. Clotilda, would you like to go for your first film?
Yes. I I'm gonna say The Voice of Indra Jab. I don't know if you saw that one.
I haven't.
It's fantastic. I think it comes out in the UK in January, actually. I want to say January 15th,
Yes.
maybe. But I got to see it at the London Film Festival. And I mean, looking forward to is such a weird thing to say when it comes to this film, given the subject matter. But I have been sort of really interested in this film ever since it was first announced. I followed the director quite a bit. I really liked her previous film, Four Daughters. It's
Yeah.
a sort of documentary that really blends the line between documentary and fiction. And I'm really interested in documentary filmmaking in general, but the way she incorporated fiction in that specific documentary was extremely interesting to me. And that's why she's such a inspiring director for me. It's very, I think it's very satisfying to watch somebody who really knows their craft, but is also committed to doing something new and keep sort of keep changing the game in that sense. But this documentary, or not documentary, it's really a fiction film. I think it has elements of documentary filmmaking within it, but it is based on a real story. It's all set in the course of one day on January the 29th in 2024 in Gaza. So the real story is that a young girl, she must have been 5 years old, called the emergency service at the Red Crescent, asking for help essentially. Everybody else who was in the car with her as they were trying to escape Gaza was killed, and she was alone, basically surrounded by dead bodies and by the IDF who were shooting at her. And the sort of a lot of the film focuses on the volunteers. So we see everything from their point of view from the moment they get the call to sort of trying to help this little girl. They have to try to locate her. But even then, they're far from Gaza, the actual volunteer center, and they only have one team on the ground in Gaza. So not only they have to sort of figure out how to get them there, but they also have to get it approved by Israel and specifically the Israel Defense Forces, because if they don't, the emergency services that are gonna, try and help this little girl are basically gonna get shot. And the film really does a good job emphasizing this sort of internal struggle because on one hand you've got one of the characters really wants to have this little girl like no matter what. Their team is actually not far away from her. I think they were about 10 to 15 minutes away potentially, but they're not allowed to go. So instead of sort of like sending somebody straight away, they have to wait. They can't even go in contact directly to ask for permission. They have to go through different channels. They have to ask for permission for them. It's such a long sort of like process that could have been, half an hour at best, ends up prolonging for hours and hours. And they try and keep this little girl on the phone to know what's going on and if she's still alive. And it must be really touching for them as volunteers as well. You can tell, they're getting an emotional connection and they must have lost so many people within that same day or even month. And you can really see the sort of emotional attachment and how hard it is for them. But they keep talking to her to reassure her, even if they're only on the phone. And at the same time, you hear her kind of losing hope, and she doesn't know what to do, you know. She's just 5 years old, but they try and keep her occupied and thinking about something else, asking her about her life and her family and all of that. And it's really heartbreaking because obviously there's actors that play the volunteers in the emergency service, and they're really good. They do such a good job at portraying these characters. There's a lot of internal conflict between, you know, the characters, and some people want to focus on getting the route approved and not getting the last surviving team in Gaza killed, essentially. And some other characters might want to focus on saving this girl more. So there's a lot of like conflict and struggle there. But I think what's heartbreaking is that the actual voice recordings, we hear the phone calls with this little girl a lot. And the actual phones are the real phone calls that the emergency services received on the day. And the film makes this very clear from the very beginning. I think the very first phone call is not even like over video. It's basically like a wave, a sound wave. And it says it's the real recording that was captured on the day. And I think that the story in itself is quite brutal and tragic. But hearing her voice and knowing that it's an actual young girl who's essentially being killed by the Israel Defense Forces is it's just it adds such a level of pain, and you can hear like the sort of the pain and the hopelessness in her voice. You knowing that it's real is so hard. It's a really hard watch. It's not something you can, you know, sort of put on, you know, after dinner. But I think it's also a very important one, um, given everything that's happening in Gaza and in the world in general. It adds, it's a personal story of like a tragic conflict. You know what I mean? It's not just
Hmm.
the personal story, but it's a way to not even come to terms. It's a way to understand the essentially the tragedy of what's going on. She might have been one example, but there's so many children that die in Gaza every day, and not just children. And yeah, I think it was incredibly powerful. And the way documentary footage and really like features of documentary filmmaking were included in a fictional retelling is also just interesting from a filmmaking point of view. So I don't think it's just like the subject matter and how emotional it is. I think it's the way she uses the filmmaking technique that make it such a unique film for me. It's not something I've ever seen before. The way these two blend. There's a part at the end where you can see actual footage of the volunteers as well, and the way that's included is also quite brilliant. It never takes away from the narration or the story. It just adds to the tragedy, really. And I think in many ways for me it's also more respectful to do it this way. I think it would have been quite there could have been a lot that could have gone wrong if they had sort of cast somebody to play this real life figure as a kid, such a traumatic story. So in many ways, I think this is very respectful and perhaps the best way to do it as well. But equally, you know, such an important story and such a beautiful film is struggling to get distribution. And I think that, you know, that should make us think. I know it's getting a UK distribution, but last I heard, it was really struggling to get distribution in the US. And, you know, her family is still struggling. I think they're still in Gaza, and there's so many lives, so many stories like that that we don't hear and we don't know the names of. Um, so it's a film that really is really gonna make you think. It's also, I think there was such a unique reaction to it in the room when I saw it. You know, you often cry at films, but the sort of it felt like a collective experience in the sense of knowing you've just watched something really powerful and devastating. And I think, I don't know, it's sad, but maybe there's an element of hope in that, and like the fact that it allows everybody to sort of, I don't even want to say understand because you don't live through it, but kind of get a glimpse of what life looks like beyond, you know, the number of deaths and beyond headlines in newspapers. So I think it's very worth watching, but you need to sort of be prepared and be in the right mindset for it.
About an hour before we started this, folks, we're doing this on the 30th of December. A week in, next Tuesday, I am going to do the press, Scottish press day, which is in Glasgow. I'm obviously watching 28 years later as well, but I'm also going to be watching this. This is the first film on the day, so I'm quite looking forward to it. I remember, I think I posted the trailer, and I remember the PR company saying, "Would you like to review it?" And I says, "No, we've already reviewed it. Yourselves reviewed it," and right away, I remembered
Mhm.
soon as you mentioned when I saw it with four daughters, I right away knew right away. If I remember rightly, that was one of your films for last year's best films list. Is that right?
That is true.
Yeah, yeah, Clotilde, you're right there. It's the 16th of January. The film is coming out. I haven't seen it. The thing about America, I think politically at the moment, it's a very
Hmm.
sensitive subject, and that's possibly why, why in America there isn't a distributor just yet, because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of. I don't want to get into politics, and I don't want to show any side or other when it comes to it. Just be neutral. However, it's all about a child dying, regardless of what religion or what race or whatever they are. When a child so young as the child in this film is all about, it's heartbreaking, regardless, because there's any of these wars in the
Yeah.
world, the people who are the innocents are the people of the armies that are fighting each other. The people in the middle, they're the ones that will suffer the most. They're the ones who'll get hit with the bombs and the guns, the fire with the guns. They are the people who will have sons and daughters going to these wars and coming back in a coffin, you know. And that's how sad it is. But yeah, I'm very curious to intrigued to see it, see this film. And obviously, I'll let you know what I think of it when I watch it next week. I'm actually watching it with 28 years later, Giant and Hamnet. So it's quite an interesting lineup I've got that day. So is there any final thoughts on the film?
I think I would just recommend that everybody goes and watch it, provided you sort of like know what you're getting into. As it is quite emotional, but I think it's also very necessary to watch.
Yes, indeed. So it's my turn again. So what will we do? I'm going to go for a film. I'm going to go for September the 5th. Quite interesting.
Hmm.
This overall did get a good reception, but at the same time, there's a few people who are a little bit mixed bag about it because September the 5th, folks, it's all about the decisive moment or which sort of, I think it changed press and media forever, and especially the news coverage because to me this is the start of report news live because for a long time, ladies and gents, news was actually recorded. Which it still is at the same time, it is still there's certain events now that they will do it live, pretty much like the events of your film Clotilde. If that happened live at the time, there could be potentially a news story going on at the time of the incident, This is all set during the 1972 Munich Summer Olympics. And this sort of follows an American broadcasting team. Before I go on a little bit, I'll just let you know who's actually in this film. You've got the likes of Ben Chaplin, Leonie Bennett, forgive me if I'm pronouncing her surname wrong, Zidane Salam, Corey Johnson, Georgina Rick, John McGarrell, Marcus Rutherford, Daniel Anderson, Benjamin Walker, Ferdinand Doffler. Obviously, there's Peter Sarsgaard, John McGarrell. He's the sort of heart of the story. He's the young ambitious producer who's desperate to sort of prove himself to his boss. Rune Aldrich was that sort of legendary TV executive. Peter Sarsgaard. So this, as I said, is set during the 1972 Munich Olympics. Following the their American broadcast sporting team, and they have to quickly adapt from sort of sports reporting, which they are good at doing live event, report the coverage of what the ongoing of the Israeli athletes who were taken hostage at the time. The Black September, I think, was the name of it, if I remember right, the name of the group who took them hostage. So obviously, sort of through the lenses that they provided at the time a fresh perspective of the broadcast, and it ended up going globally, to the world, not just America. And I think at the time, there's around about 1 billion people at the time were watching this. I mean, that's unbelievable, nowadays when you see the figures of news, television, and etc. Even the films, that's absolute fantastic. So at heart of the story, as I said, is Jeff, John McGarrell, He's a young ambitious producer, and he's trying to, as I say, prove himself to his boss, Rune Aldridge. It's obviously together with the help of Marianne, that's Leonie Bennett, and his mentor, Marvin Badder, who's played by Ben Chaplin. Jeff, he sort of takes the helm here in the live coverage, and then obviously he's the one that's starting. Oh no, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this, because if we don't, other American TV companies will come in and take over. And because no one expected a sports team to actually come in and take over this, and how they changed history here. Because as we watch it, as he takes helm, and the narrative it sort of shifts all the time, and as time sort of ticks down away, you start to hear rumours spreading and things about, oh, the hostages are getting free, we're taking them to this airport or that airport. The hostages demand this, that, and that. Basically, a lot of times the crew there, that obviously a lot of this is actually set in the backstage, the editors and the people who are fixing all the programs. They're up against time, and a lot of these guys are actually German as well. There's a lot of conflicts going on, and it's testing a lot of people's sort of moral compasses. Have you actually seen this film, Clotilda?
Yes, I saw it at the beginning of the year, I
Yeah.
believe.
What did you think of it?
I thought I liked it at first, but the more sort of like time passed and the more I thought it was quite not really memorable.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is the writing and it's quite short, I think. And that's, it's a good thing because it doesn't obviously feel long, but it feels
Yeah.
like it doesn't have enough time to really explore any of the topics it's actually talking about. They do really well with sort of like the urgency and all of that. But I think a lot of that is down to the actual events and the story. I think in terms of like character development and that sense of script writing, it didn't really work for me. The actors are good, I thought, but they just didn't have that much to work with. We don't know a lot about their lives, and I think that makes it quite hard to care about them. And obviously, it's quite a significant story, so you do care about it, but it's quite hard to sort of understand the characters' motivations. It seems like the film is a bit unsure about what it wants to do. I think to me it wasn't very clear who it was trying to follow and who sort of like the main story was supposed to be.
No, no, you're absolutely correct. It's ABC Newsroom. It was doing this at the sports team. Yeah, I think also
Hmm.
I think what I liked about it is it doesn't focus on the terrorists or the actual victims of what the outcome of what actually happened. It's all about the journalists themselves. I was just sort of grapple whilst what's happening outside sort of unfolds and how they're sort of making history. As I said there, it's the birth of live news and how they report and the impact of reporting things, and it questions the ethics of journalism as well. And that obviously the clashing with the sort of responsibility, but it's actually happening. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, maybe the writing is maybe the sort of downside of things, but the performances are absolutely great, especially Sarsgaard. John McGarrell's good in it as well, and Leonie
Yeah.
Bennett. Yeah, she's very good because obviously, it's very good. It really catches that sort of 70s style feel to it. The 70s. Would you call it a thriller? Maybe a drama thriller type thing. Yeah, there is thriller elements in it because there's at one point in there's a lot going on, and then there's a bits where the terrorists, who I think was also the position in the building where they were, the building where the American team was taking hostage is virtually near enough. You can see it from the studio type thing. I think they, if I remember rightly, they had like a slope where they slowly pulled a TV camera out to actually see if they can look onto the screen, and then there's that iconic image of one of the Black September terrorists coming out onto the balcony, and they actually see what actually happens, and that obviously endangered the hostages and everyone around at the time, and obviously that's where the moral compass comes in. Then it's actually what 25, nearly 30 years after World War Two, the sensitivity of the still post World War Two, with Germany and that, and one of the reasons why that's why they went the Munich Olympics, to try and see bring everyone together, that type of thing. And what I liked about it was they didn't try and recreate a lot of the presenter, the news presenter. They didn't try and put somebody else in there. The guy that was in the studio over in the States. They actually, the way they sort of cut it, it was quite smartly done. The way they were actually, the way they were doing, you were actually seeing bits of the right coverage of the guy who was covering it for them. I liked that type of thing, but I also challenged the sense of things, of the part where they think they're taking the hostages to the airport and they're going to let them loose. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not spoiling any of it. It's not a nice outcome that happens to the hostages, the Israeli team, and it shows you how misreporting can actually what damage it can actually do as well. I mean, it's Frida Cooper reviewed it. She's done quite an interesting review as well, which if you go to peoplesmovies.com and see that, she really liked it. She really did like it as well. We actually did a interview the cast as well, some of the cast, just head over to the website. I think it was Leonie Besic and Peter Sarsgaard we actually did interview, watched the interview. I believe it was Frida as well, so have a look at that. So, any final thoughts on September the 5th, Frida? Sorry, Clotilda.
I don't know. I think it's definitely not like a bad film, and I
Yeah.
think it's quite enjoyable as you watch it. Just for me, it wasn't that sort of like I guess it just didn't stand out compared to other films this year. But I do agree with what you said about the acting. I think it really sort of elevates the film. Especially there's a couple of, people whose performance is really impactful.
Plus, as you said about the timing, I believe it's only about 94, 95 minutes long, which is quite short
Yeah,
for
it's quite
such
short.
an historical event. I enjoyed it. As I said, I liked the sort of way they brought in some of the original footage, mixed it in. And I think if it wasn't based on the actual crew in the building, in the studio that they were given for the Olympics, using that footage might have been a bit trickier, to actually use. If I was to sort of rate this, I would probably give it 3.5 stars, possibly 4. So, Clotilda, would you like to give your next film?
Yes, I think my next one is Rental Family.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. It's another great watch for me of the year. It's with Brendan Fraser, who plays an American actor, lives in Tokyo.
yeah.
He's really struggling to find jobs, and he is at the beginning of the film, he's sent to sort of it's kind of an obscure job. He doesn't really know what's happening. He's just told to like dress really smartly and in black. As it turns out, he was attending a funeral. And that's how he starts his I guess career or his new job, which has a little bit to do with acting, I guess, but it's not exactly being an actor in a film. He sort of becomes somebody that is rented out when people need them. So if they need like guest at a funeral or somewhere at a wedding, it's sort of like a person, and he really plays a part in that sense. Oftentimes the clients would ask for specific things. There's a scene at the very beginning again of the film where he has to play the groom for someone's family, like in a fake wedding ceremony, so that her family would think that she got married. So it's all these sort of different parts, and he gets given like a name. It's a proper part in that sense, and he works with an agency that does this renting people thing, which is why it's called Rental Family. He is basically a stand-in for what people need in their life. Some people, because you also see other people in this sort of rental family agency, and you can see that some people only need people to talk to sometimes. It's not just about maybe one specific event. There's another character in the film who sort of plays this person that just goes to someone's house and talks to them at dinner. So it's good. It's very varied, but a lot of it sort of starts kicking off when he's asked to play the father to this little girl, and the client is the mom, and she gives him like the whole rundown. He has a name and a story, and why he's only showing up now. It's all sort of agreed upon. And the other thing is that he cannot tell the quote unquote daughter that he's not her actual father, because the reason why she needs to have this sort of stand-in father is that she's applying to this very prestigious school, and if she's a single mother, the daughter will be turned down and she won't be able to do good, very good school. So the solution is that Brendan Fraser is going to have to play the father for a little bit, but she asks him to do it a bit early on so they can form a connection. She's worried that the school will sort of like know if it's not real and they have to answer some questions about her. So he needs to get to know her. But he starts really forming a genuine bond with her and with other clients. And it's not just a performance. He may have a different name, but he's the bond between especially him and the daughter is real. And that will create some problems. But it's a really beautiful film. I think it's very much about loneliness. The actors talked about how they did some research, and in Japan, these rental family agencies are actually really popular.
Yeah,
So it does speak to something very real about the country. And I think obviously it does focus on an American character, but there's a lot of Japanese culture in it. All the other characters are from there, and there's a lot about the culture because he's been living there for years as well. So he's very immersed in the city, and even this whole plot about like the very exclusive school. I think there's a lot about the culture, and a lot of the film is in English, but there's parts of it in Japanese as well. When especially when the sort of non-American characters talk to each other, and I think that's quite beautiful to see from a relatively big movie to showcase not just, American culture and American language and all of that. I appreciate that it sort of like opens the window on a different part of the world. And it's beautiful. You see a lot of Tokyo. I also really like that. Also like the little girl, I'm trying to remember her name.
Shannon Gorman.
Um, yes, you're right. She's so good. It's her first film as well, and she's really, really good. Especially, you're acting against Brendan Fraser, who's obviously an incredible actor, and she's quite captivating, really. Her innocence and the way she portrays the character is quite layered and sort of this genuine connection that she has. And at first she doesn't want to talk to him because he's just reappeared in her life, and then she really loves him. And I think she did it really well, the sort of switch and this difficult relationship that she has with him and the complications that come with it. And it must have been quite hard, especially being her first film. She also acts in both Japanese and English, which is again very impressive.
I love Tokyo. As I've been twice in the last 3 years to Tokyo, and 2026
Hmm.
I'm trying to make it a third time. I totally agree with everything you were saying there about Tokyo. It's such a wonderful city. It's such a unique city because it's got so much crazy things going on in it. Like you say, the rental family. There's also a thing for the guys. There's a lot of single men in there that actually can rent a girlfriend. I remember 3 year ago when I went, the hotel I was in, there was an Japanese American guy in, and he's saying, "Why do you not call this? They speak English, And he was somebody to accompany you, and it was rent a girlfriend. I thought it was hilarious. I couldn't find the business card. I thought I need to keep this. And it's not. It says, but it's not that type of girlfriend. It's just really somebody to keep you company, as if they were a girlfriend, which just sounds a bit much the way the Brendan Fraser character's trying to do, with the family. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. Luke Herfield, he's done the review for us from London. I believe he enjoyed it as well. Let me just double check. I've got my screen open here, so let's. I'm just sort of reading the stuff on the trailer there. I mean, Tokyo is about 37 million people live in that city. Live in the sort
Wow.
of greater, yeah. It is some city. As you said, I've been twice, and I'm lucky even seeing a bit of about 1% of it. It's an amazing, amazing city.
Hmm.
I do recommend everyone to go, and I always say when you go there, is we're talking about the Liverpool with the culture. Yeah, I always say to folks, try and learn several things. Try and learn a few basics in a language. Things like don't walk about. You've just been to the shop. Don't walk about. Say it's a sandwich you bought. Don't walk about with that, eating it as you go, or drinking, because that's seen as disrespectful in culture. Little things like that. Maybe try and learn a few words like arigato gozaimasu. There you go. Thank you very much. Hi, yes. Things like that. Konnichiwa, konbanwa. Things like that. That's little simple words that I've learned. They're the simplest, and it makes your sort of experience more. And it's great to see Brendan Fraser starting to get lead role parts again, because
Yes.
after the Mummy, he sort of disappeared. He sort of disappeared, taking up secondary roles, support roles, and some of the roles that he did. I'm like, my God, you can do better than that. And so obviously the whale has sort of helped Brendan Fraser a bit, with Dan Aronofsky's film, and it's really helped him. And then obviously he played a part in The Killers of the Flower Moon as well, quite a part. But yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this. Luke definitely did like it. He did say that, I don't know about you, he was saying here in the review, it's very tender dramedy, but it maybe plays it a little bit safe overall. I don't know if you understand what he's talking about there. Do you think, as Luke was saying there, you think that it plays it? He still gave it 4 stars. He was saying it played it a little bit too safe, but it is a very tender dramedy.
Um,
Do,
I see. I understand like why. I think that was one of the things I heard about it. I know there was quite a bit of criticism,
yeah,
actually, especially for the people that watched it at London Film Festival. I don't know. I think I understand when you're watching a lot of festival films. I can see why it would seem like it's playing it too safe because maybe in a festival you're used to seeing, more innovative films and really things that push boundaries and especially like stuff that you don't expect. But I
uh-huh,
think if you sort of look at it in a wider context, especially to a general audience, I don't think it does. Of course, it's a bit predictable in that sense. Like it's a feel-good story. There's nothing crazy happening
yeah,
that maybe you wouldn't expect, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it really is that kind of film that maybe wants to play to a more general audience. So in a way I do agree, but I don't necessarily see it as a fault of the film.
yeah. So somebody like myself, I love the Japanese culture and a lot of things that come out of Japanese. Do you think I would really enjoy this film?
I think so. Because I think the way it incorporates, Japanese culture, especially considering it's really a story about America in Tokyo, is
Yeah,
quite fascinating. And I mean, there's not a lot of films of it's not super mainstream, but films of this level that really showcase it like that. There's films that are set maybe in Japan or in different cities, but that really include Japanese culture that much. I don't think it's that common. So I do think if you're a fan of Tokyo, of the city and of the culture, I think you would enjoy it maybe even more because there's elements of it that you would sort of know and maybe parts of the city you would recognize and
yeah.
things that you could relate to in that sense.
So if you were to rate the film, what would be your overall?
I also give this 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just such a good time. And it's sometimes you need that sort of feel good, emotional story as well.
Yeah. Folks, just to let you know, a bit pretty much like the best and worst of the writers' lists. All the films we review, be it on the website or be it in this podcast, they're all out either in the UK or Irish cinemas. They're either streaming and in certain cases been at a film festival during this year. That's the sort of things that we do to when we're picking the movies. So if you just say this film isn't officially out at UK cinemas, I think it is next month as well. I think it's sometime in January, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It is out.
I think so.
I think it's the end of the month. I am looking through my little campus diary, which is, believe it or not, is Japanese. Oh, I wonder why it's Japanese. I've got it
Hmm.
down as. Oh, at the same day as the voice of Hind Rajab, 16th of January.
Oh wow,
So there you have
big
it. So
day.
yeah, so why not go and watch the voice of Hind Rajab, get a bit emotional, and then cheer up watching Rental Family. So
Yeah,
it's
do a
not.
double bill.
Yeah, do a double bill. Yeah, why not? Why not? So it's my next film. So this year has been a big year for Stephen King for his books. Several films have come out, and I've got two of them on this list. There is three actually came out. One of them I haven't seen, but it's on Netflix this week. Actually, I think it's out today on the Netflix today. But I am going to review The Long Walk, which I originally reviewed on episode 50, which is not that long ago, on this podcast, the Chronicle Film Podcast. This is episode 53. But Frida Cooper, she wrote the review on the website. So this stars Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, Mark Hamill, Judy Greer, Garrett Waring, Toit Noyut, apologies for the mispronunciation, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, Jordan Gonzalez, Joshua Dick, and Roman Griffin Davis all in support. So this is directed by Francis Lorne. He's known for his Hunger Games franchise. It's also written by J.T. Molnar, and he directed one of my films from last year's list, The Strange Darling. Have you seen that yet, Clotilda, The Strange Darling?
No,
No, you need to see it.
I have not.
No. So this is based on Stephen King's 1979 book, which he wrote under his pen name of Richard Bachman. As I said, there's another Richard Bachman book film coming up. So this opens up. It's like it's like a letter or an email for the cat for someone called Ray Garrett, who's Cooper Hoffman plays him, and it reads out a bit like a draft letter. And from this letter, we start to learn a little bit about the situation that they're in. We're in the near future in America, and America's been ravaged by an unknown war. It's nearly 20 years after that, and the country's in a financial meltdown. It's run by a totalitarian regime. Does that sound familiar? And
Yeah.
things are getting out of control here. And one way the powers to be take control of things is through the long walk. So through a ballot, all these young men are chosen all over the country. Well, through the ballot, they're chosen and they're forced to do this walk from one location to another. Will they ever get to the end? Because they walk until the last one is standing. The government of this film, they're saying it's all going to motivate and also entertain the public. Most of all, it's to distract the woes of the viewing public, through the climate. It is shown on television. The boys have no clue what they've actually signed up to here, and they have seven rules that they have to abide by. They need to walk with a minimum of 3 miles per hour. There's no stopping, and if they get three warnings, they're actually shot. And the last boy standing, he wins what they're calling an endless prize cash, and a prize of a dream awaits for him. The boys obviously have the soldiers at all time around them. No, they're all locked and loaded and they're supervised by the Major, who's played by none other than Mark Hamill. The history of Stephen King's books being adapted to the big screen and also the small screen, it's very mixed here. And fans of his books approach these adaptations with excitement or trepidation. I've never read the book, The Long Walk. I have to admit, I've not read many of the books of Stephen King. It's not I'm not deliberately doing it. I'm the slowest reader in the world. I've through in the living room. I have about 20 books there which I've started to read, and I've had some of them for about 20 years as well. But I'm aware that some are calling this version of The Long Walk one of the best adaptations. I'm also aware that the film has also went through several changes, especially the ending. I think also the rules of the game have also changed as well, slightly. Maybe just little things. I will say, me on reading the book, didn't impact my enjoyment of this film. I really, really didn't like this film. And I actually went into the film quite blind. It was just, I think, obviously the director and JT Mulner involved in the trailer sort of sold it for me. And I think it is a wise move for folks if they go into it, you know, uh, blinded as well. I mean, as I said, Lawrence is the director and he has experience in dystopian worlds, with the Hunger Games. I think the Long Walk is King's anti-war film because when it's his anti-Vietnam story, because his generation they suffered the impact of that war, and obviously in the name of patriotism. And King himself, he luckily for him, he was too unfit for the draft. And this time, it's known that it isn't an Asian, it isn't in a hospitable environment like an Asian country. Obviously, the film's now set in America. It's set in America, obviously, for it's influenced by that. And the young men when they used to go to war, they were all walks of life, all parts of the US. I mean, they were all walking into the unknown here, and then also they quickly learned about camaraderie and in this film. There's a lot of blossoming friendships, and they're very doomed friendships. And you get to see the guys actually supporting each other here. And times are hard, and I will say the humour is flowing. But when you start to watch this, it's very heartbreaking as well. What's actually going on here. As I said, it's heartbreaking because they're obviously walking to their deaths, and also throughout the film, from the start to the film, we do start to learn a wee bit about the boys' backgrounds, their stories, their motivations, to give us sort of more emotional background and how to support the boys. Because you do actually want the boys to do it, especially at times they do get humiliated as well in this. I think the long walk doesn't hold back in anything. I think it throws you right into the lion's den, and you quickly see the brutality the boys find themselves in, and where it's on spot assassinations, they get no sleep, and there's no even bathroom breaks, and there's several times you do see them trying to go to the bathroom, and one time is really whoa, it was quite graphic. And it's a bit like the GI City do in no Name the War Zone. So, Clotilde, have you actually seen this?
I don't. I think I would really like it actually from your description. And it seems like something that you said the director is Francis Lawrence, and I was thinking it's really something that seems suited to him, I think, because as you said, he directed Hunger Games. It's a similar genre, but also like showed that he could, well, all the Hunger Games except the first one. But yeah, it also showed that he could, really adapt a book well for the screen. So I will check it out. It sounds like something I would really enjoy.
I think it's I don't know if I think it might be out in sort of digital at the moment. And I think it'll be on home release soon. If not, it's on home release.
Hmm.
So I think it's a grim vision of the American dream. I mean, cinematography is absolutely gorgeous here. And as the boys are treading through America, and a lot of this area is where a lot of the boys actually come from. It's towns, small villages, small towns out in the countryside, farmland. They all come from, so you get to see the decay of the place sort of falling apart. And it is a very bleak film, and it highlights the sort of power of the brotherhood and togetherness. In a society that's obviously destroyed by hungry career politicians, which a lot of them are unfortunately doing at the moment for all sides of the political fence. I, if I remember rightly, on the podcast, I gave it 4 stars. I think it was Sean Wilson that done it with me. Apologies, Sean, if it wasn't you. I think he agreed. He enjoyed it as well. Nick Bartlett might have been there as well. I think we all agreed that we enjoyed it. It was a really, really good film. So I have 4 stars. Clotilda, what's your next film?
My next film is Nova Vague. I don't know if you've seen that. Um, I loved it. I had such a great time with it. It's obviously I really don't think this one is for everybody. It's very much like film history. It's for film history nerds like me, but it's from Richard Linklater, which
Yeah.
I think. It's the director of two films on my top 10 list,
Oh,
or top 15. Top films of the year. Yeah, it's brilliant. If you're familiar with the French New Wave, that's obviously what it is about. And it's really focused on Jean-Luc Godard specifically. Also, I think the actor that plays him is really, really good. I am not sure. I personally haven't seen him in anything. I think he's done other films, but it was the first time I saw him in anything. I thought he was brilliant. Like he plays Jean-Luc Godard so well that I don't know, obviously he's a real person, but it sort of feels like the movie equally stays true to what we know about him as a director. But also it's quite funny. Like it doesn't just show him as this, I don't know, fantastic, untouchable, great director. It also shows him as a person that could have been quite difficult to work with. And I think that that's quite fun. I also quite liked the whole like the way it really takes you back to France during the French New Wave. It really feels like you're immersed in the atmosphere that the people who were part of the Cahiers du Cinéma, lived
yeah.
in. And that must have been quite hard to do. I think part of it is because of the black and white. The film is all black and white. I love that. I feel like we don't see black and white movies at all. And that was so cool because I feel like there's this sort of misconception that if you do black and white for cinema, it's like boring and there's no cinematography. But I don't think that's true. I think this film shows how, exciting black and white can be, and it can be, the right choice for some films. I think it certainly was for this one. And yeah, it's very sort of like time focused because it really focusing on like the filming of these low budget films rather than, the French New Wave as a whole. And I think the sort of specific focus helps the film a lot because it could easily get quite boring if you wanted to include all the people from the French New Wave or like all the movies that they made, all the achievements. I think that it could seem quite academic even, and like it's teaching you something. But by doing focus on however many days it took, I'm not sure. I Yeah, I don't remember how many days it took, but however many days it took to film that, it it feels less like a sort of educational piece about the French New Wave and more about the actual people that lived in the French New Wave. Obviously, you see a lot of other people. I think you see Francois Truffaut and others. I think you see Agnes Varda as well. And that's really fun. I think especially if you're a fan of the new wave, it's really fun to be like spotting the characters
Yeah.
and you sort of know somebody's coming up. You're like, oh, Agnes Varda is about to be on screen. And so I thought that was quite fun. Um, but it's also good to really focus on one. It gives the film enough time to explore Godard as a character. And again, I think he does such a good job at it. It's really funny at times. And you're not sure if you're laughing at the character or with the film or both. But it sort of feels like the type of film that is not afraid of making fun of its characters and showing that they're not necessarily like perfect people. So I quite enjoyed that. It was very fun. I feel like if you just say it's a film about the French New Wave, it sounds a bit boring, but they did a lot of interesting things with it. And I thought it was very cool how Zoe Deutsch, she plays
Deutsch.
a like American actress. Yeah. And she was so good in it. It's sort of good to have that counterpart of like somebody who's not used to I guess the French style of filmmaking at the time. And in a way I think she could easily represent like the audience or the people who wouldn't know how this operates and how everything is weird to her. I think including her was really cool because you could see sort of like maybe that's sort of kind of normal to them and the people um in France or on set at the time, but it's very much not to the rest of the world. And I thought that was so cool. That was very fun to me. And yeah, it's also just like beautifully filmed. I could easily watch it again. It doesn't feel long. I'm not sure how long it is actually. I was trying to check that.
I've
Oh,
got,
it's just over an hour and a half.
yeah.
So It's a very decent runtime, but it kind of does feel like it flows by to me. And I think it's quite good to have a film that celebrates a important historical moment like the
Yeah.
French New Wave. I hope that maybe people who are not familiar with it can still watch the film, still appreciate it, but also maybe be inspired to revisit such a key historical movement within film history. And I think I really appreciate how I think it can work for people who are familiar with the French New Wave and for people who may not, have heard of Godard like ever. So yeah, I think it was just a very well made film.
Do you know the first time I saw something about it, I was like, why they get pictures? I thought it was showing the old picture, not realising it was a Richard Linklater film. I was like,
Hmm.
and then I realised, no, well, it is. I think it's out here on the 30th of January. I think it's
Oh,
going
it's
to
a
net.
genuine as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to Netflix as well. I think it's Netflix that's releasing it because they're quite involved in Richard Linklater's films. Zoe Dutch is playing Jean Seberg. Christian Stewart
Yes.
played her about 5 6 years ago in a biopic on her, just simply called Seberg. Marbeck is the French actor who's playing Jean-Luc Godard. You've got Aubrey Dulin,
Oh, he was great.
he's playing, is it Jean-Paul, is it Bemandino? Yeah, Alex Bennett is Juliet Greco. Luca Noe, I believe that's Gaspar Noé's son, is playing Francois Morel.
Ah.
Benjamin Clery is Pierre Resson. Jean-Pierre Melville is played by basically Tom November. Adrian Ruard, he's playing Truffaut. We even have, let me see, I think we even have, who do we, I think we've actually got Jacques Rivette's even in it. Jonas Mami playing it. Kwame Tulan is playing Eric Romer. And the list goes on. Roberto Rossellini's even in it. Laurent
Yes.
Mo, yeah,
Oh, I love that bit.
yeah. I mean, you can, and then Jean Cocteau and Robert Bresson. Jean-Jacques Lavessier is playing Cocteau, and Orien Laguerre is playing Bresson. So yeah, it is an important part of film if you're a filmmaker or if you're a film critic or a historian. It is one of the parts, the areas of film history you have got to learn. Yeah, they brought a lot of techniques. God done that, brought a lot of techniques. Filmmaking, yeah, a lot of them might be very basic, but it's important techniques. The storytelling and everything, is in here, So it'd be quite interesting to see because, yeah, usually when you think French movie, oh God, we need to go to an art house cinema. Yeah, a lot of French movie that is
Hmm.
art house, but it's one of the words that I really don't like is art house because people, oh, it's for snobs. No, it's not. It's arty farty, that type of
Hmm.
thing. I'm like, no, just think it is you said it was a comedy, didn't you? Comedy drama. Think it is a comedy drama. Think it is an action thriller, blah, blah, blah. Rather, oh, it's an art house. And I'll tell you, people will be pleasantly surprised. So that is. Vague, apologies. So it's my turn now. I'm going to keep it Blake here again for my next choice, and it's a film I reviewed on the Chronicle episode 48. I do have the other film I reviewed it with in my top list. I reviewed them both with Rebecca Sayce, and that film is Bring Her Back. This is the Australian brothers, Danny and Michael Philippou. Back in 2022, they released Talk to Me. That was the one about the Aussie teenagers. They find this hand, which if they put their hand on it, they say they do a certain few things. It lets them speak to a spirit. It's quite a good film. So the return to obviously the horror genre again. And this one stars Sally Hopkins. This is a film that Sally Hopkins did instead of Paddington 3. Also starring Barrett, Stephen Phillips, Sally Ann Up. Upton, Alina Bell-Chambers, Yona Wren-Phillips, Olga Miller, Misha Haywood, and Liam Damos, and Sora Wong. As I say, this one, say every ritual has a cost, and in this film, it's a brother and sister who uncover an terrifying ritual, secluded tomb, their new secluded tomb of their new foster mother. So the film opens up with this ritual. It's like an old VHS tape, and it's just the only way to describe it. It's like a sort of witchcraft type ritual. It's just it suggests what may not happen in the film. As in with the brother and sister, that's Andy and Piper. The sort of trauma contention when they obviously see their father collapse and die in front of them. And the world for Piper is already a bit of a challenge for her because she's visually impaired. In real life, Sora Wong is visually impaired, and I believe this was her first film as well. It's amazing to do, with this podcast, Clotilde, and the amount of first-time actors and how well they've done, in the films that we're talking about. So,
I have not seen it.
yeah, but as in like Rental Family and that, and that's a first time. She was a first time actor, Shannon Gorman, I think it was. Our brother Andy, he's a bit of a rock to her, and when they were at the foster care people, they were saying because he's not quite 18 yet, we need to split you up because we learn that Andy's got a bit of an issue, anger issues and that. But splitting them up would be bad news. But eventually, what they do, they decide to keep them together. Hawkins, she plays Laura, the foster mother, and she has her own sort of trauma, hidden trauma, and she comes across as that sort of loving mother that Piper wants. But at beginning, Andy, he's not having it. He knows there's some, not all what seems here. And Laura, she has her own foster son, Oliver, who's played by Jonah Wren Phillips. If you've seen any of the posters, Clotilda, you see a young boy who looks like he's been possessed. Yeah, that's Jonah. That's Jonah. He doesn't speak. He's very mute, and it looks like you think he might be hiding something. And mentally, he's sort of falling apart at the same time. Obviously, we don't know that until the more the movie goes. So bring her back. That actually shares themes with a film I'm going to talk about later on in the podcast about grief, loss, and trauma, and possibly abuse. And these, as I said in the podcast review, these are the true monsters of the film. But there's also another monster, obsession, which one of the characters has not to get back those that they've lost, which can also push someone to some sadistic places, some hellish places. And on face value with Laura, she comes across as a sort of kind-hearted soul, but is she becoming a monster? That is the thing there in this. Bring her back. It is a slow burn, but what it does well is that feeds you what's about to happen and what's happening below the surface. The sort of fixation of the movie sort of pushes you into the extreme in which sort of brings in the sort of body horror, even a little bit of possession. And that's especially, as I said, with Oliver, Laura's foster son. As I've mentioned before in previous reviews, be it my written ones, be it here in the Chronicle and Chronicle Take Two, or over at Chronicles Film, my own little personal site, sound design and the score play a pivotal part of films, especially in horror and psychological films. Because this is a psychological horror thriller, we call it. Emma Bottigon, she designs she's the sound designer in this, and she keeps the sort of your nerves taut. Well, Cornel Wilczek, his score sort of swells and it swells the sort of foreboding feeling, the sort of sense of dread in this. And this is a really unsettling film. As I said, it's a slow burning chiller. It's also very heartbreaking. The base of the story is very heartbreaking as well. It's not an easy watch. It's not going to be a film for everyone. Enjoy it, but some fantastic performances, especially for Hawkins and Wong. You said you haven't seen this. Well, As I remember you said that you're not a horror fan. This, yeah, it's
Yeah.
still, yeah, it is still a horror, but it's more in the sort of psychological thriller. I think I gave it 4 stars in this one. What's your next film?
My next one is I said there were two Richard Linklater ones, so I'm gonna say Blue Moon
Yeah.
to I guess keep with the theme. I really like this one. I guess if I had to choose, I did like Nouvelle Vague maybe a little bit more. Again, maybe not for everybody. It's very much a sort of like theater kids film in many
Hmm.
ways. It's about Lawrence Hart, who
Yeah.
did write the song Blue Moon, after which the film is called. But it's set sort of like exclusively over one evening in one setting. He is in a bar, and his former collaborator, who he wrote most of his music with, Richard Rodgers, is celebrating the opening night of Oklahoma, which is a instant success. Lawrence walked away earlier and went to the bar. That's when the film starts. But then as the film goes on, multiple characters walk into the bar, including Richard Rodgers, to celebrate the success of Oklahoma with all the people that worked on it. But really, the film is about obviously Lawrence Hart, and it's very much like I think in many ways it could be described as just a monologue um, about like loneliness and just about him reflecting back on his career. Of course, the other characters are very important, and he does have beautiful moments with some of them. But I think it's about him. He's the one that stands out, and Ethan Hawke was brilliant in it. He's sort of like, even if you do like the other characters, he's the one that grabs your attention immediately, and it's just him sort of like talking, talking, and talking. And it sounds boring, but I think it's great the way the space is used. Like I said, it's only this one bar, but the camera is still quite moves quite a bit, and there's still quite a lot of freedom with the space. The bar is quite big. It's on two levels. At one point, they go upstairs, and I think it's quite fun to see like this sort of one setting used so well. The the camera angles change quite a lot, but even the sort of location within the bar changes. Like at one point, maybe he's near the piano, and then he's upstairs, and he's in another area. And I think that all contributes to make the film so dynamic and fun, even if it sounds quite sort of like stagey, which it is in many ways. And I appreciate the sort of like the way it almost feels like a play, considering that it is a film about theater. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed how they sort of incorporated his songs in it a little bit. Just maybe for those that are not entirely familiar with him, it's very nice. And I guess for people that like theater as well, there's a lot of references to Oklahoma and other musicals, and it's quite nice to, I guess, pay attention to that and catch them. But even if you're not, necessarily a theater fan, I think it's a very enjoyable film. For me, it felt really short as well. Like it finished, and I thought it was a sort of ad break. Like I didn't think it was the end of the movie. It went really quickly for me, and I think that's credit to sort of like how good the pacing is. Again, it's not super long. I think it's just over an hour and a half, so not too long. Margaret Qualley is also in it. She plays Elizabeth. Forgot her
Welland.
surname.
Welland.
Yes, thank you. And she's very, very good as well. I think it would be like it could have been an easy character to play as maybe a bit silly, a bit full of herself. But I think she plays it with such not I don't want to say like a good heart, but she plays it with like quite a lot of layers and quite a lot of emotion to it. So I think that's also very good to see. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend it.
I know quite a few Manchester City fans. Blue Moon is their anthem that they play before the football.
Is
Uh,
it?
yeah, if I believe it's the same song. Do, 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 do,
Ah,
do, do, that one, yeah. Yeah, so I wonder if any of them will want to watch this, to see how the anthem does it. I mean, there's a great cast there. I mean, even Hawks, he's Lawrence Hart.
yeah.
Andrew Scott, Richard Rodgers, you mentioned
Oh
Margaret
yes,
Qualley.
he's great.
Yeah, and Bobby Cannavale, sorry. He plays Eddie. And there's even a young boy playing Stephen Sondheim.
Oh
I
yes, I love that.
mean, we'll just mention some icons of the cinema. I mean, this is some icons of music musicals, you know. And I mean, you even get Simon Delaney there. He's playing Oscar Hammerstein. Need I say more? Hammerstein, you know, that's one half of the people it gave musical history. They're some of their greatest films. Songs. I haven't seen this, but I will be curious to see it myself. It sounds quite interesting. As you said, it's only an hour and 40 minutes, so it's not that long a movie. So, if you were to rate this movie, what would you give it?
4.5.
Wow, so very good. A Nouveau Vague, you would give that what, five then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
excellent.
think it's just more something like that I appreciate more because of the film history background.
Yeah, yeah. We do have a review, ladies and gents, of Blue Moon on the website. So just have a look on the website, type in Blue Moon onto peoplesmovies.com. I am going to talk about the film I slightly did not mention in my previous review there. That is Weapons. Have you seen Weapons?
No. Is
Right.
that a horror?
Well, it's labelled a horror. It's I would
That's
probably
why I've
say
seen it.
yeah, but it's not just a horror. It's pro people. I'm not into horror big style. This is becoming like their sort of horror film for film fans because it's not a 100% traditionally horror, the sort of traditional sense of things, but it does have horror elements in it. I would probably say it's one of my favourites of this year. It's directed by Zach Kreger. He directed the absolute bonkers Barbarian, which I believe I may have reviewed in a very early episode of the Chronicle because it came out in 2022. And obviously, many people were asking, can he top that off? Yes, he can. This one does it. The story of this one is when all but one child from the same class sort of mysteriously disappears on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is obviously left questioning what has happened and where and who's behind the disappearance. The kids say they all get out of their beds and they run down the stairs at the front door, and that time was 2:15 a.m. To sorry, 2:17 a.m. But where did they go? This is the question they're following. This sort of follows several characters at the same time. It's very linear, a bit like the GT Milner film Strange Darling. It's very non-linear. So we've got Julie Garner. She plays the teacher in the small town that this is all based in, and she's one of the school teachers in there, and she becomes the prime suspect because it's all her people's bar that I went bar one of them. And Josh Brolin, he's one of the parents, and Benedict Wong, he's the school headmaster. And but you've also got, forgive me the pronunciation of this. He played the young Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich, Austin Abrams, Carrie Christopher, June Diane Raphael, Whitmer Thomas, Toby Huss, and Amy Madigan. What I like about, as I said, the weapons is that non-linear approach to the narrative because it follows sort of several characters and it jumps in between them, but it jumps at certain points of their story. You know, it's not like one character maybe going through one part, there's some just happen to another character. You know, but they all eventually get to the same point eventually in this one. What it does is it quickly sort of builds this sort of suspense, and it's suspense sort of through layers of menace, and it also keeps the mystery of exactly what is going on until obviously everything is revealed to you. And when you think, obviously, it takes you down a lot of dead ends as well, but in a positive way. When you think you've sussed it, it does something completely different. The narrative is probably very supernatural, but it's very and a lot deeper. And it's sort of building the tension and the sense of dread, the paranoia, and obviously the themes are very similar to what I mentioned, Bring Her Back. And in there, and it keeps it, and what the themes do, they keep the film grounded in reality. And this is probably where a lot of people think the film is not in the sense of a straightforward horror, but it does have the horror elements to call it a horror. It is a deeply personal film to the director. because he lost a childhood friend recently, but also pushed him to addiction, alcohol. He was at alcohol, and Julia Garner's character, she's the alcoholic in this film, and the film has a lot of symbolism in it, especially with addiction. I think it's an American thing. The steps program they have to the cover. There's the triangle. You see a lot of triangles in and out around the film. And next to obviously you've got the sort of grief and loss. And there's also trauma, especially childhood trauma. Where the children disappearing, you get to see the impact it actually has on the parents and the town. Alex, he's a young boy who's left in there. And we also see many of the dangers that the children face on a daily basis. When the film originally came out, they kept Amy Madigan's character very secretive. And her performance is very menacing, and she is the star attraction of this film. And she plays Alex's Aunt Gladys, and she's very controlling, manipulative figure. She, in a way, is also her character is sort of a symbol of that addiction. And you start to wonder if the trauma in the town is actually manifest through her, for you do see certain things that may suggest it is. And the film, one of the sort of discussions when the film came out originally was its title, Weapons. Some believed it was an attack on Trump and obviously his politics and that. Yeah, in a way it is, but Criggers themselves said it isn't. It's all about the people itself and the townspeople, how they weaponize themselves through sort of words and actions. And there's at one point where this is where the people think it's all about the guns and that, and Trump. Josh Brolin, he's seen this. It's like a dream or something, or he sees his kid going out and he starts to follow him, and he gets to a point, and then suddenly this big gun appears. You see the gun, and that's sort of once again, symbolism's a big thing in this film, and that's symbolises sort of violence. The guns obviously bring to communities, not just in America, all around the world. As I said, this is not a straightforward horror because it plugs into the sort of real life anxieties and traumas. It blends that sort of psychological horror and the sort of mystery, and there's a lot of dark humour in it. It reminds us that no one is actually perfect. I believe in this film, I also gave it 4 stars. I remember when I reviewed it with Rebecca says, when we reviewed it in episode 48 of the Chronicle, she wasn't a big fan of Weapons. She did like it, but she wasn't the biggest fan of it. I think she gave it 3 stars, but she loved bringing her back. Let's go into your next one, Clotilda.
My next one's Jay Kelly. It's another Netflix one, like Frankenstein.
Uh-huh.
It's stars Joe Clooney as Jay Kelly and Adam Sandler as his assistant, Ron. It's a really good film, about sort of like what it means to live life for movies, I guess. As he's a very, famous actor. And there's a really beautiful line where he sees that all my memories are films. And it's kind of bittersweet because he realizes he's missed out on time with his family. And all he knows is being on a film set, is shooting scene, is doing another take. But also, it's bittersweet because equally that's what he loves and that's what he loves doing. And there's also another scene where you see how much impact he's had on people by doing that job. Um, but after talking to his daughter, and he realizes he's missed out on a lot of both of his daughter's lives, he kind of goes on a journey physically through France and Italy, and also, an emotional journey of self-growth where he remembers his life and his past. I think it's really beautiful how, like I said, the physical journey mirrors his own internal journey of self-discovery. The sort of flashbacks, there's a lot of flashbacks to his memories. And again, all his memories are movies. So most of his memories are film sets and how he became an actor, his like first famous film, how he met his wife, all that stuff is on sets or somehow related to filmmaking. And it's really beautiful how they're, worked into the film. It doesn't, I don't think it takes away at all from the storyline. It adds to it and it breaks it up in a really nice way. And I think the best part of the film is the friendship between Adam Sandler, Scatter Ron, and Jay Kelly. It's very, it's very rocky at times, but I think they do both do a really good job at showing how, like, why these characters care so much for each other, even if at times they're not great for each other. And George Clooney is really good in it. But I have to say, Adam Sandler in his scenes really steals the
Hmm.
spot. Like he's so good. I think we're so used to seeing him doing like funny, and he's very good at that too. But we're very used to seeing him in a comedic role. That when he does something a little bit more serious and more emotional, I don't think we expect him to be that successful.
Hmm.
And I think he was, especially opposite George Clooney. They have like a lot of scenes together, but one in particular towards the end is quite beautiful. I also especially liked, sort of like in the first half of the film, like the chaos that Jake Kelly comes with, all his like assistants. There was one for this, one for that. His cost, like his makeup person, and his, I don't know, a personal assistant, his scheduling, like everybody. And I think they did that quite well. It's such a key part of establishing realistic order and something you believe in, right? So Laura Dern is in it, Greta Gerwig is in it partially. Maybe they have smaller roles, but they all work to make this a believable story and make us understand why Jay is feeling the way he's feeling. There's a part where he says something like his daughter tells him he's never alone or something, and it's true. Every time you see him, he's with somebody. Somebody's always following him or helping him or asking him something. And I think it's not it's not sort of overly explained, but it's very clear throughout the film.
Clotilde, I totally agree on the Adam Sandler. If anyone knows through the history of the people's movies, I am no fan of Adam Sandler, but I totally agree with you. When he gets the serious roles, he's fantastic, absolute fantastic. I haven't seen his last one, no, the one about he's the spaceman. Is it space? I think it's called Spaceman. It's on Netflix.
I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it. Or he's Happy Gilmore. No, they're no-nos for me. It was Happy Gilmore I watched, and that was that. I said I'm never watching his films again. And then obviously his series roles came out, and I thought, you know what, he can do an acting role. It's a bit like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's renowned for his
Hmm.
comedic roles. When he does a series role, he is fantastic as well. Jay Kelly, is it Elvis's granddaughter that plays Jay Kelly's daughter, Riley
Yeah,
Keough?
she does.
Yeah, it looks good. I might check it out. Though I'm not the biggest fan of Noah Baumbach, and obviously Greta Gerwig's his partner in crime. I can't remember the name. It was on Netflix. No, the one that had Adam Driver in it, and Greta Gerwig, where they play the hippie family when some sort of bomb or some goes off in America. It was a bit of a sort of dystopian sci-fi type thing. I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
know. It's
Yeah, that one. I was so looking forward to it, and I was so disappointed when I saw that. So I've been a bit, when it comes to Noah Baumbach films, I'm a little bit more okay when it's Greta Gerwig, 'cause I think she's a bit more upbeat than our other half, because he seems to be a bit more depressing. I'll definitely check that out. If you could give this a rating, what would you give it?
I give it 5 stars.
Wow, 5 stars. That's excellent. It's my next movie. And I mentioned earlier that I think it was when I was doing a long walk, there was another Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King film I'm going to review. And this choice might surprise some people because it's getting banned everywhere. However, as I mentioned, I've been struggling this year to get films, and this one is The Running Man. I actually liked it. A lot of people think I was going to say Life of Chuck, which I haven't seen, which I believe is on Netflix from today, the 30th of December. Same again. It's a big year for Richard. Stephen King, Life of Chuck, Long Walk, and then in the small screen, you had It, Welcome to Dairy, which I have seen. I have my issues with it, but overall it was entertaining. Excuse me if I suddenly sneeze. I've been trying to sneeze there. Apologies if I do. The Running Man, that has been on the big screen before, and it was originally released in 1987. And King despised that version of the film because his book is a lot darker. It's a slice of satire as well. The 87 version was a cheese fest. It was an action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I actually do like that verse, but I'm also aware it's not a great film, but many people do consider that a cult film. It was do you know it was directed by, have you heard of the TV show Starsky and Hutch?
No.
Starsky and Hutch was a big American TV show for the 70s into the 1980s. I think it was Paul Michael Glasner and David Soul were Starsky and Hutch. Glasner, he was brought in to direct the original film. It was Andrew Davis, I believe, who was going to do it originally. Davis, he did The Fugitive, I believe that was one of his films, the one with Harrison Ford. He gets sacked for some reason and he get brought in. But this time, the 2025 version is done by Edgar Wright. He's done like Shaun of the Dead, Last Night in Soho. He directs the 2025 version. And he promised it will be a lot closer to the book. And Stephen King, when he saw a version of the film, he gave his approval for it. So this one stars Glenn Powell, and he is a desperate everyman, the everyman Ben Richards. This also stars Josh Brolin, Jamie Lawson, Coleman Domingo, Amelia Jones, Michael Cera, Katie O'Brien, Carol Glusman, Lee Pace, and Sean Hayes. And the film is set in the near dystopian future, and the world divided by wealth. There's a surprise. And Ben Richards, he's seen as this a working class man in this, and every man, he's jobless and he's desperate for work because his daughter at the same time is very, very sick and she's in dire need of the medicines, and the medicines are very, very expensive. The downside of things is for Ben is he's blacklisted for working. So he doesn't have very, very much options to get work. His wife, she goes out to, I think it's Jamie Lawson, I think, plays his wife. She goes out, does work as well, but obviously there's not enough money coming in. And so Ben stays at home watching the sick daughter, and one of the TV shows that comes on, there's other shows that you get to see, is the Running Man TV show, and it's the highest rated show on television at the time. It's a deadly competition where the contestants, known as runners, must survive for 30 days whilst being hunted by professional assassins. And Ben, he wants to apply for one of the other shows. However, when he goes up to apply for him, he ends up meeting the ruthless producer Dan Killian, who's played by Josh Brolin, to enter the Running Man because the Running Man gives a greater cash reward. And Ben, he was not looking at the last resort, but he's very defiant in his instincts. Obviously reluctantly does it, and so was the Ben's very defiant in his instincts and his grit, turning him into an unexpected hero, and it sort of starts to threaten the entire system that's set up around this game show. And like the ratings, the danger also skyrockets as well. So Ben obviously has to outwit these hunters that the nation are addicted to, hoping that he will fall. I will say right away and let the cat out of the bag, the ending is disappointment, which is quite weird because obviously King gave Edgar Wright the approval, but when I was sort of reading up about it, King actually gave him the approval for the ending as well, because our hero is he's a man of the people, and in the book he actually sacrifices himself in the book, but they're saying Wright said it was too dark a thing to do. He says it wasn't very appropriate, but obviously certain things that have happened in the last 10, 15 years in America, i.e. September 11th, with a plane crashing into a building. They thought obviously it wasn't appropriate as well. Before I say anything else, Clotilde, have you actually seen this film?
No, I really wanted to, so I'm hoping to catch it at one point in the new
Yeah.
year.
I think it ticks all the boxes of an entertainment popcorn film. Leaves your brain at the box office and just enjoy. It's a wild ride, right? And the themes in the book, which Wright gives into the film, are very terrifyingly relevant. And I really don't need to go into it too much in detail. As well, things like the wealth gap has increased despite our wages increasing, but obviously destroyed by tax increases, and the prices in the shop for all the things that we need have just risen. And corporations, they're taking more control of our lives here as well. And what I think also resonated here, how we're entertained. Television now is full of reality shows. Some do resemble The Running Man, obviously without the violence. And days of just sitting around, sitting and watching what we're watching in the box are long gone. Nowadays, people are interacting with these shows in many, many ways, phoning in for competition, voting for people, so on and so on. And in many ways, this book was written, 40 plus years ago. It's like in many ways, it's just like modern television. And see the little mobile phones that everyone has. That's like your own little studio in your hands there. In the Running Man, viewers are encouraged to track Ben and take pictures or videos and send them into the show. So it's sort of questions, sort of the mobile phone, how it many think it's corrupting the minds of them that are on these phones, especially the kids, the teens, and that. Don't even get into too much detail there. What you can get off the phone and in the internet, and obviously the owners of these phones are bombarded with suggestions, and obviously ads that cater what these ads think you need or think you should do this or do that type thing. Glenn Powell, he's great as Ben Richards. So he gives it a very the performance is very unhinged. He's very charismatic. I can't even say that right. And I think it's great to see him finally getting a chance to shine as a leading actor. I know he did it a little bit with Twisters as well, but he's getting it now. In the Arnie version, Mick Fleetwood is an assistant. It's a separate entity. But in this, Ben is an assistant. The cast is excellent, though I will say the support cast, some of them are underused. Josh Brolin's, he's fantastic as Kellen. He's very egotistical, it's deceitful as a network exec. Once again, Coleman Domingo is brilliant. He's Bobby T, he's the show host, and he's full of beans, and he's a sort of, I think he's the perfect sort of corporate, as I would call corporate ringmaster. Katie O'Brien, who people will know for Love Lies Bleeding and Mission Impossible 8, the final one, she's fantastic in this, and Michael Cherry, both of them own the sort of scenes that you see them in. Kate O'Brien is slightly more underused. She's one of the contestants at Run Me Ben. I'm being a little bit biased here. A lot of this film was filmed in and around Glasgow. And it's great to see, obviously, I don't actually live in Glasgow, folks. I live in the town next door to Paisley, which is known for Paul and and Jerry Rafferty and Gerard Butler. That's what we're famous for. And Phyllis Morgan as well from Downton Abbey. That's the town, my little town. I think seeing a lot of, Glasgow the architecture is fantastic. It's very modern. There's also classical and there's a lot of brutalism there. And it makes why a lot of Hollywood films come to Glasgow to film. Talking of films come to Glasgow, one actually came to my hometown of Paisley. Josh O'Connor's next film with and Francis McDermott. They came to Paisley, my hometown, and did a little bit of filming there as well. The Coen brothers, not it was the one of the Coen brothers. I can't remember what one it was. It was the Coen brother. It's married to Francis McDermott. Can you remember his name? Clotilde, the one that did. Is it the Julius Caesar one with Denzel
I don't
Washington?
remember.
But he's married to Francis McDermott. I thought, wow, two big Hollywood stars in my little town. We've got David Tennant as well. That's another name. I'm throwing these names in. There was various locations around the city centre, like the Buchanan bus station. That's used. At one point, Ben runs to Boston, so that doubles up as the Boston South Station. Hillhead, which is up the West End, there's a tenement there, which Scotland, Glasgow especially is famous for. There's one at Boston are very similar type buildings. And then right down the sort of River Clyde area, there's two big arenas there, the SEC, but there's the two newer arenas that are around it, the Armadillo and the Hydro. They make their cameos in it mostly for Kate O'Brien's sort of part. And many will ask, does Arnie make a cameo in it? I'll say yes and no, but not the way you expected. That's a little bit of a spoiler there. I will say the Running Man, it isn't perfect. If you like to say, when you come to arenas, cinema, Clotilde, as you know, is our arena. It's our arena for escapism. And at the time I watched this, it wasn't the best time of the year for me, and I needed a bit of escapism for a few hours, and it did the job. I will say it's not one of Edgar Wright's best films, but it's a solid film, well flawed, but it's a great soundtrack like all his films. I would probably give this a 3.5. 3.5. I know Scott, my co-editor, he did not like it. I think he gave it 2 stars, but you can read his review on thepeoplesmovies.com. So what's your next film?
My next one is The Testament of Anne Lee. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I haven't.
It's hard to describe what it is because there's so many things at once. It's partly sort of like, yeah, I think it's a musical in every sense, but it's about a religious leader called Anne Lee. So it's a bit of an unconventional musical, I would say. Like I said, it's about Anne Lee, who was like a real person that, actually existed and did found this religious movement. And she's played by Amanda Seyfried in this film. At the beginning, she's living in Manchester,
Ah,
and a very religious family. But after she gets married, she finds sort of like her faith aligns more with the Quaker movement.
mhm,
And from that, gets familiar with the Shakers. It was a very small movement at the time, and she basically heads the movement and really, in a way, decides core elements of it and what makes it different from other religious movements. And obviously a lot of it is taken from Quakers and stuff. And as the movement begins to expand, she goes through a lot of struggles with the church. The church didn't approve of, this sort of side movement that didn't necessarily follow the same principles, or respect the same religious authority. So there's a lot of pushback on it, and she actually ends up in prison and starts getting visions from God. When she gets released, she obviously shares them, and that's sort of why they believed her to be a sort of second coming of Jesus Christ in a woman form, or like a sort of prophet, I guess. Somebody that had a direct connection to God either way. She really had a lot of power in this movement, not just because she was the founder, but because they really believed that she had this sort of connection, was basically considered close to Christ himself. The movie's very well made. There's so much of it that's very entertaining to watch. From the very beginning, in Manchester, it really feels like we're sort of jumped back in time. But I think the best part is when they travel to the US, to the East Coast, because they're trying to find a new place to live and to take the movement since they were having so many problems with the church. One of the best scenes, I think, is one of the boat. And then when they arrive to the US, because they do such a good job with the cinematography. And I think that's why it's such a good film. It's not just about the musical part of it, which is quite good. I enjoyed that a lot in itself. It's everything around it, the way it's filmed, even the musical elements is very good. And I have to say, like, considering the musical elements are within the religious context, they are very much part of what the Shakers do without saying too much.
mhm,
I really enjoyed I really enjoyed the music. It's all original music, and it does stay in your head quite a lot after the movie, I have to say, and it works really well. I think it does what, traditional musicals have always done, of like using music to speak when like words fail. So it's incorporated incredibly well. And I also really liked Amanda Seyfried. I thought she was so good in it. She's obviously, her character is very tormented. She has a lot of hardship in her marriage. I think I won't say all her kids were stillborn, but yeah, I think all of them. No, none of them survived after birth. So it's an extremely emotional role and very physical too. And she's singing and dancing as well. It's an incredibly tough role, and she leads this film really well. I really hope to see her in some award conversation as Best Actress, because I think this is an incredible performance, and definitely one of her best. But I will say it's quite hard because they use obviously not modern English, which works well to sort of take us back to that time, but it's not easy to follow, especially in the songs. I watched it in Venice. I watched it in 70 millimeters, which also, I would recommend watch it with in real film. But that means that obviously they didn't have the subtitles on the film like they would do in digital versions. Spanish always has subtitles, and they always have Italian subtitles as sort of like an extra, like little screen, if that makes sense. So I was able to follow quite a lot of it through the extra subtitles, but I do think it's quite a hard watch. The music is often overpowering, and in the songs part, and because they use this version of English that is a little bit more archaic. I don't think it's super easy to understand, especially if English is not your first language and
yeah,
you're watching it in the original, which you should do. I know, like, one of my friends struggled quite a bit, and he didn't obviously speak Italian, so he couldn't
mhm,
rely on the Italian subtitles. And so that's just something to consider. I would recommend maybe a subtitle version if you
yeah.
can. But other than that, excellent film.
So I think it's out on the 20th of February here in the UK.
Oh, it's a February release. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's Fox Searchlight Pictures. It's releasing it.
Hmm.
How was Amanda Seyfried's accent, her English accent? Was it typical American actor sort of fake English, if you know what I'm talking about?
I think it's a I think it's a bit better than your sort of typical like bad American
Yeah,
impression of an English accent in the sense that it didn't like bother me too much. Also a lot of the other actors are American,
yeah,
sort of main actors that are part of her family. But I mean, it's not 100% because it's set in Manchester, so
yeah,
um, not super familiar with that accent. It's not 100% like Manchester accent, also because they're using an older version of English. But I want to say it's quite convincing. Like it's not, it doesn't sort of stand out. It's not too jarring, but it's also not 100% accurate.
yeah. I know a Manchester accent because obviously I went to university in Salford, which is next
Ah,
to Manchester. And if you
you
think
might
my
find it a bit different.
Yeah, if you think my accent's strong, the Mancunians, that's a different kettle of fish. Not as bad as some, but it can be. It took me a while to learn all the some. Just one other thing on the film. Obviously, Quakers they don't drink alcohol. Did they touch on that? The sort of things that they don't take in the film.
Yeah. They did they did touch on like what the Shakers believed in. So like you mentioned, not drinking alcohol.
Yeah,
The Shakers were even a bit more stricter, I want to
yeah,
say, than the Quakers. And it's interesting to see sort of like where that comes from in her life, if that makes sense. There's elements of her personal life that I think you can see reflected in the religious roles and why that movement spoke to her so much. And I think what I really liked as well is this, right? There's always sort of a human, very human element to it, even if it's about a religious leader. And I think the film never sort of, it never preaches in that sense. It's never sort of going back to
yeah,
God or going back to the religious element to explain things. It's about her life, and incidentally, she was a religious leader, and she was considered to have this, I guess, connection to God. But I feel like it's more shown as an autobiographical thing than a religious element, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that makes it quite enjoyable for everybody. Like you don't have to believe that Anne was the second coming of Jesus Christ to enjoy the film.
yeah. Is this another 5 star for you?
Yes.
There
I
we
had
go.
a lot of 5 stars this
You
year.
do
Well,
indeed,
like
yeah.
six, but compared to last year,
Yeah, this year for me it's a bit different. A lot of 3.5 stars, which I think the film I'm going to do next, is one of them. Have you seen Hollow Road?
I have not.
No, it came out. It had a bit of a low key release. I think it was Universal released it here in the UK. It's directed by Babak Anvari. He's the British Iranian filmmaker. People probably know him for his
Hmm.
2016 ghost story Under the Shadows, which is sort of set in post-revolutionary 80s Tehran. But he's very well known in the horror genre. Did the horror mystery Wounds with Armie Hammer and Zazie Beetz, and the Netflix noir thriller I Came By with Hugh Bonneville and George Mackay and Kelly MacDonald. Apparently, his next film, titled Cloverfield sequel, what he's doing with J.J. Abrams, and this is going to be a direct sequel to the original film, not the sequel to the film that Mary Elizabeth Winstead did. Hollow Road stars Rosamund Pike, Matthew Rhys, and Megan McDonnell. And the setup of this film is very, very simple, and it only has a running time of 80 minutes, which is quite unusual these days, even for a British film. Things start at night when the parents, which are played by Rosamund Pike and Matthew Rhys, receive a very distressing call from their daughter, who's played by Megan McDonald, that she's caught in a tragic accident. So once the parents learn the severity of what's actually going on, the both of them jump in the car and head to the aid of their daughter, who's at this point very, very distressed, and by every minute she's getting worse. And the accident happened in a very well-known beauty spot. And Maddie, who's Rosamund Pike, we learn that she's a paramedic, and so she's on the phone talking to her daughter, who's Alice, played by McDonald, and telling her how to do these CPR techniques to help, obviously, the injured party. But at this point, Alice's mental state is just getting worse, which is making her parents more edgy and more nervous, which is obviously starting to put them in danger because the dad starts to put the boot, Frank, the dad, he starts to put the foot down in the car, get there even quicker. And at this point, Frank and Maddie are arguing what to do next when they arrive. And things get even more complicated when they get there and leaving them very unprepared of what awaits for them when they arrive. Hull Road, as I said, it got a bit of a it quietly went into the cinemas with very, very little marketing. And very few, I will say, very few British films do get very little marketing unless it's one of the big films like a James Bond or something, or it's got big names in the cast. Don't get me wrong, the Pike and Reese are very, very well known. I will hold my hands up when the film came out. I gave it a wide berth, but I recently got a chance to actually see it, and I have to admit, I really enjoyed it. That minimal marketing does work to the benefit of the film because I think you go into the film, the less you know, the better it is. Because if you do know more, it's you sort of slide into spoiler territory here. And even looking at the previous reviews of the film came out in the cinemas. Some of they can't really decide what type of film it is. Some are calling it a thriller, others were actually calling it a horror. And Vardy, as I said, we know for his previous films, he's no stranger to the horror genre. And to me, Hal, Harrow Road, I would actually consider as a psychological thriller, which is horror elements in it. The real horror to me is every parent's worst nightmare when they learn that their child has been in an accident. And as I said, that's a different type of horror which is grounded in reality. I will say we'll get one thing straight here. The movie won't be for everyone. Won't be for everyone, this. Look at the four mentioned reviews. The critics and the cinephiles are divided when it was out in the cinema. I think it might be out in digital now. No, it reminds me. Have you seen Stephen Knight's 2013 movie, which is set in a car lock, which starred Tom Hardy?
I did not.
No. That Harlow Road, I would say, is very similar to it. It's about
Okay.
99% set in the car. There's a little bit at the beginning when you see the parents before they get into the car, and then a bit at the end. It's a very claustrophobic ride here. It's full of tension because it's delivered in real time. A bit like Lock, that was delivered in real time. I would actually call it a study of how far we go when a loved one's in trouble. And Vary, he throws in a few nuggets here. He actually throws in a little bit of folk horror into here to sort of throw you off the scent here. And what I think that actually does is it's makes things a little bit more haunting, a bit more creepier element to the film, and it leaves you sort of questioning, what have I actually watched here? Matthew Rhys and Rosamund Pike, they're excellent in the lead roles, and they generally sell the role as worried parents because with raw emotion here. Without sort of giving too much away, McDonald, I think it's actually O'Donnell, she's great too. She uses her vocal talents in here, and she just delivers a sort of that vulnerability as a young woman, sort of woman terrified. And all of them carried the film to the very end with a lot of emotion, anxiety in it, and it felt truly authentic because it's not easy to deliver when you're in a sort of minimal setting here. As I said, it only runs for 80 minutes, and that helps the cause here. William Gillis, he's the scriptwriter here, and he delivers a really razor sharp script here, and it keeps you immersed to the end. Look, once again, looking at Anvari's experience with the films, he knows how to work with a budget that's very limited or very no budget at all, and he uses things like the sound design, reflections on the window, and he mixes it up with sort of different genres to sort of give it a very tense, nerve-shredding film. Some might argue the ending is a weak spot of the film. I can see why they do it, but I think if you rewatch the film, I think you'll appreciate the intriguing nightmare of what happens in this film. If I was reviewing this at the time it came out, I would probably go as far as 4 stars. I believe Frida reviewed it again in for us at the People's Movies, and she gave it 4 stars as well. So, Clotilda, what is your next movie?
My next movie is Ryan Coogler's Sinners. It's obviously directed by Ryan Coogler.
Yeah,
It's about two twins, Smock and Stark. They're both played by Michael B. Jordan. And he's so good that for a second, while watching the movie, I thought there were two Michael, like I thought there were two
yeah.
actors. I thought they found Michael B. Jordan real twin. But no, it's just him. He's just very good. But they're coming back from Chicago to their hometown and they're trying to leave some troubles in Chicago behind and start a new life. And so they want to, they're sort of inviting everybody and they're preparing for this grand opening. And things are not going exactly right because, as we see from the very beginning of the movie, there's somebody who's haunting the town and will target them because there's a lot of people in there. I don't want to say too much because I think by now it's really hard if to believe anybody hasn't heard of Sinners. But if you haven't heard of
Yeah.
Sinners and don't know anything about it, that's great. I think that's the best way to watch it. It does surprise you a lot throughout the film, especially if you don't know sort of like what the premise is. I will say it's a sort of supernatural. Is it a horror? Maybe it is in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
brain.
it's
I
a
really
horror.
liked it. It's a horror? Okay. Yeah, but I'll accept this one actually. But yeah, it's very good. The acting is incredible. Like I said, Michael B. Jordan almost thought he actually had a twin. But I think also Haley Steinfeld, she plays Mary. It's worth mentioning. She does a really good job with her role, and her character is quite pivotal to the whole story. Miles Catton, isn't this his first film? It's
Yes,
yeah, mind
yes,
blowing. He
as
was really right. He was so good in it. It can't have been easy. His role is also quite layered and complicated, I think. And I also want to mention Jack O'Connell, who plays Remick. Remick is one of the main characters, and I think he does a really excellent job with it. And again, quite layered character. I think it's also quite a movie that talks about a lot, sort of not inadvertently. I'm sure it was very intentional, but like not it's not overly explained, but there's a whole political and social subtext to it, as with a lot of Ryan Coogler's films, and how there's a lot, that speaks to race and the discrimination of Black people in America and that sort of like racial struggle. I think that kind of elevates this from being a sort of supernatural horror, like many others, to like, a masterpiece, probably one of Ryan Coogler's best films so far. I also want to say the music is excellent and is a really big part of the film, is the soundtrack and the musical choices. There's a lot of the film that relies on music, and for those who've seen it, there's a scene about halfway through that is very much focused on music. It's quite long, and I think it's the best scene in the whole film. When I saw it, it blew my mind. It's other films I've mentioned, the best of the year. It's really something new, something I think stays with you because you haven't seen it done, both from a storytelling point of view, but also from filmmaking point of view. I love what it does and how it uses the filmmaking craft, and the cinematography is beautiful. This is again a film that I think is very much worth watching in the cinemas. I know for those who are in London, the BFI was doing in December at least. I don't know if they're going to do it in January. Screenings of it. I don't want to say re-release, but new screening because it came out in the first half of the year. But yeah, this is another film I really hope to see in award conversations for all the major awards. We'll see how that goes, but I think it would be really worth it. And giving it 4.5.
excellent. Actually, Clotilde, we both reviewed it in episode 44, I think it was, with
Yes, I thought so.
Warfare, which was another excellent film that surprised us. I totally agree with you. It was a great film. I tried not to, there's many films that we reviewed elsewhere.
Yeah.
And this, if it's the music scene, you're thinking where the musicians, you can run in a circle and it's different eras of the music, showing you the history of the music. That was excellent as well. All the cast were excellent. You totally agree with you. I think I gave it 4 stars. If I was doing a full list, yeah, this will probably be on my list of best movies, along with Warfare as well. And that was Sinners. And for my final best film of 2025, Clotilda, you'll be glad to know it's a happier one now. It's the Ballad of Wallace Island. Have you seen it?
Oh, I haven't seen it. No.
Oh, it's a fantastic film. So every February into March, as you know, I always head to the Glasgow Film Festival with other local critics. For a little bit of a game, what we try and do is we try and guess what the surprise film will be. It's sort of one of the highlights of the festival, what the surprise. But it's the same in a lot of festivals. It's quite good to try and guess. This year's choice was James Griffiths, who directed Cuban Fury, the Ballad of Wallace Island, and it's a delightful, charming choice. So this one stars Tom Baisden. He starred in the TV show Plebs. Also, Kim Keehee starred in endless shows, but he might be better known for some people as the pigeon guy from Mikey 17, if you can remember him. And it's got Kerry Mulligan and Cyan Clifford to name a few others. So this film is actually based on the director's 2007 short film, which was called The One and Only Herb Maguire Plays Wallace Island, which Basden and Key were also starred in as the same parts. The following year in 2008, I actually went on to win the Best Short Film at the Edinburgh Film Festival. So now, 2025, we have the actual full version of the Ballad of Wallace Island. And this follows Herb Maguire, who's played by Tom Basden. He's a musician who's sort of like past his prime, and he's sort of stuck at a crossroads of his career. And he's hired to perform a gig on Wallace Island by an eccentric lottery winner, Charles, played by Tim Key. And he lives alone in this island. I believe the island is in Wales, sort of off the Pembrokeshire coast. He lives alone in the island. And what Herb doesn't know is Charles also, also hired his former bandmate, who just happens to be his ex-girlfriend, Neil Mortimer, Kerry Mulligan, who's now married. Both used to play together as a duo under the name of Maguire and Mortimer. And Chelsea's dream is his dream is to see his favourite band back together, but he doesn't realise that the tensions are rising even further when Herb finds out what Chelsea tends to do for the band, what the audience is, and the audience is just him, played for one. So things are starting to fall apart here. But the question is, can Chelsea actually save his gig, his dream gig? I knew very little about the movie, even the part about the Edinburgh Film Festival, until the film screened at the Glasgow Film Festival. I'm not sure what I would do if I won £1 million in the lot. What would you get an idea, Clotilde, what you would do if you won, say, €1 million?
I have not seen this film. I don't think it was playing at. Oh no, I lied. It was playing at the London Film Festival. There's just so many films you lose track. But yeah, I don't. Is it has it come out? I didn't hear anything
It
about it
is, it's out.
actually. After.
It's well out, it's out in home release.
Oh,
But what I was asking you,
oh,
what
ceremonies. Okay.
what would you do if you won £1 million or €1 million? Can you think? I can't think what I would do. What would you do?
Oh, you know what? It's so overwhelming. I don't know. It's such an overwhelming amount.
Yeah, it is
Um,
exactly. Exactly. There's a lot of
how do you start? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you start thinking about it?
yeah,
I think I would like. It's got to be something like film related, like build a cinema. Do you know, like not actually build,
yeah,
maybe build a cinema or something. Do you know what?
yeah,
But like a cool one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I don't think that would use the whole thing. Like I would have to find something else as well,
Probably, yeah, yeah.
right? I gotta think about this.
Yeah, something to think about. So I wouldn't know what to do. Probably travel around the world or something like that.
Well,
Was
actually,
it?
that's a really good one. I might have to save that one for my
Yeah.
remaining amount after I build my cinema.
In your private jet. Right,
Well, see, now I feel like I've got a really good idea. I should just play the
go for it.
lottery.
Yeah, why not? Why not? As used to say, it could be you.
Never know.
Musicians, actors, sports stars, celebs, you name it. They've all proven that money can't buy everything. And there's one thing they can all agree on. Behind the fame, it can be quite lonely, and which at times can affect the talents. And in this film, in the Ballad of Wallace Island, I think Charles will be seen as a sort of lonely person. And what he seems to do is he hides behind his humour and his sort of warmth that he's got as well. And but deep down, we start to learn that Charles has lost someone, and that something or someone who believes that her playing for him will actually help his needs. Tim Key and Tim Basden, they are the stars of the show, and their chemistry is wonderful as well. And you generally do feel the emotions as well. This is what you call a feel good movie. You know when Charles is nervous or unsure, you know he's going to drop a funny line or a joke or something like that. And Herb, he's a bit like a yin to Charles's yang. So when things go on, when Charles drops jokes or whatever, he starts to get a bit frustrated. Sometimes because Charles doesn't understand his sort of demands that he wants. The remote island, I think, it can be seen as a bit of a pressure cooker for Herb. But actually, what I think this film shows, it's actually forcing him to sort of reflect, question what he really wants to do in his life, and that isolation sort of from the outside world sort of helps Herb to become, I even think, a changed man. Maybe rediscover his creative talents. But behind the eccentric charms of Charles, it's nostalgia for Herb and Nell's music, and also both of them looking for a connection, help them to move on. Here as well. And what works for this film is they don't actually overcomplicate things in the story. It's a very simple story you can actually relate to. The ballad of Wallace Island perfectly balances the sort of laughter and emotions. And as I said, it gives you that sort of feel good film that sometimes you want to look for. Very nuanced performances for the cast. And what that does allow is things to flow nicely, from the humour to the sadness at the film. Gaucher delivers. It is a charming, bittersweet film, and I think it doesn't overstep and things, especially in the sort of sentimental side of things. What it does show you that wealth doesn't cure all your problems, nor does obviously the fame that Herb has. And what does do it is a generous heart and a need to sort of obviously connect, and living in the now, not in the past, will help. This is the first time that I've actually reviewed it. I didn't get a chance to do it after the Glasgow Film Festival. Folk Callum reviewed it for us from the film festival. He gave it 3 stars. I'm actually giving it maybe 3.5 to 4 stars. I liked it a little bit better for him, So that's my final
Hmm.
film. What about your final
I need to
film?
watch this
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I heard really good things about it. Yeah, I heard only good things, which is not doesn't happen often, right?
yeah.
But yeah, my final one is it was just an accident. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't, no, but I know what film you're talking about.
Yeah, I won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. I think it's well, I know it's distributed by Neo in the US, but I always forget who does in the UK. But it's out, I believe,
Yeah.
and it's in Iran. Um, at the beginning of the film, the we see somebody having a small accident on the road as he's traveling back home, and he goes into a normal mechanic shop to get it fixed before he goes home. And obviously, he doesn't think much of this encounter. But one of the people who works at the mechanic shop, his name is Vahid. For him, that sort of changes everything because just by hearing this man's walk, he doesn't even see him. He he recognized him as somebody who used to torture him when he was in an Iranian prison. So he starts following him home and he wants to sort of take revenge, really, on him. But he needs to be 100% sure that it's the same person. So when he sort of interrogates him, obviously this man keeps denying it, and he said it's not me. Um, he says yes, I do. I do have a sort of prosthetic leg. That's how he recognized the walk. But he explains he got in like a different circumstance. But he doesn't believe him, so he sort of enlists the help of some of his former or friends or people that were formerly in the prison as well. Because before taking any action, they want to make sure it's him. In the meantime, they're just keeping him sort of as a prisoner in Vahid's van. One of them is a photographer, and then the photographer's friend also gets involved, and it's revealed she had also been in the prison. So they've all had like history with him. They've all been tortured, and he has inflicted them much pain, but none of them can be sure that it's actually him because they didn't actually see him in the prison. They were blindfolded, but they did hear his walk, and it does sound similar. It's a very interesting film because it does bring up a lot of questions, such as, the need to sort of, I guess, make your own revenge. But and it's hard because every character has a different perspective on it. They've all been through something really traumatic. And yet they don't really agree on how to sort of deal with it now that they have the person in front of them. If it is him, which they still, spend quite a lot of the film deciding. But they disagree on like some sort of outcome of this and what should happen to him if it was really him and what the revenge. of retribution should look like. And the film asks us a lot of questions in that sense. But I think the beautiful thing is that none of those characters is like portrayed as a in a bad way. The prisoners, I mean the former prisoners. Even if, you personally might not agree with some of them and prefer someone else's opinion. I think the film shows us how like their brain works and how sort of some of what they're saying is justified. And I really like that because it kind of shows like the different responses to such a, traumatic event. But I also really like sort of there's a commentary on like whether this sort of self-retribution is the right thing to do. And why, is this man evil, in of itself, just because not just because he tortured them? Is there like a bigger story? Was he just sort of like a symbol of the system, or is he actually, does he deserve to be punished for this, or was he just doing what he was told? So it really is a commentary on the Iranian regime. And, the director had to film in secret.
Right.
And like, many other director, I think we talked about this with Mohammed Rasulullah last year for I forgot the name of his film. He also won a prize at Cannes.
Yeah, I know what film you're talking about. I just can't.
Wow.
I'm the same. I can't remember his name.
It's oh my God. I really liked it too. Oh, The
Yeah.
Seed of the Sacred Fig
Yeah, yeah,
came
of
to me.
course.
Both of them like have been arrested, and they wanted them in prison, and I think they had to pay fines. Like it's obviously behind the scenes, it's also a risk to shoot the film at all. They could be imprisoned, and I don't know. It's interesting to me how the film comments on it, but it's also like the very fact that the film exists is an act of defiance to the system, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And I think for that reason alone, it's quite a big deal that we get to see it. It's could have easily been censored, or they could have found out he was filming, or he would have been still be in prison because he was in prison up until a few years ago. So yeah, I think it's quite brilliant. It has, I think, quite a lot in common with the Seed of the Sacred Fig for some elements. I
Yeah,
think it was in the shortlist for Best International Feature Film at the Academy Awards. I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I saw it on
yeah.
the list. And yeah, it's just a beautiful film, and it's also shot beautifully. It's in the desert in Iran, and there's so much of the landscape that is shown in the film, and it obviously is quite negative about Iran in terms of the government and the institutions, but I think at the same time it shows the beauty of the country, and that kind of makes it even more sad because you also see these people who are, maybe trying to do something good for themselves, and that's where it's quite painful because you see this sort of very bleak outlook on the institution, but also like this good people who have like good lives and people they love and a beautiful country, and it's the juxtaposition of the two really works. But again, it's not a really, easy watch. It's quite heavy, and the topics of conversation are quite heavy. I think the last scene is fantastic. It stayed in my head for a long time after I saw the film, and it's quite. If you've seen it, you don't know what I mean, but it's quite like
Yeah.
tense, and then the film ends. I was lucky enough to see it twice before it came out, and I think even if you know that that scene is coming and how the film is ending, it's still very much tense throughout the whole thing because they build this tension, and the pacing is very good.
And it's yourself that reviewed it for the website. And I believe it was at
Yes.
4.5 stars you gave it.
Yes, it was 4.5.
I'm actually looking at the review just now. Mubi's releasing it here in the UK. So,
Ah, of course. Yes, it is
yeah,
movie.
yeah. So, folks, it's still in UK cinemas. You might have to head over to maybe an independent or an art house cinema to see it. Look out. But obviously, as we said, it's on Mubi, so probably in the next month or two, early next year, it will be streaming on their service. So you have it,
Yes.
folks. That is our best films of 2025. To see our full list, head over to thepeoplesmovies.com. We have the list there under the writers, and you'll see some of the other writers what they've chosen as well. We'll see you shortly for episode 54, which is the worst films.